In the heart of bustling Lagos, a city that never seemed to sleep, there lived a young woman named Amaka. At 28, Amaka had built a life she was proud of. She was smart, ambitious, and held a successful job in advertising, where she thrived in her role as a creative strategist. Lagos, with its chaos and opportunities, had molded her into a go-getter, someone who could hold her own in the corporate world. Yet, despite all her accomplishments, one thing weighed heavily on her shoulders: her family's unrelenting pressure for her to settle down. It wasn't that Amaka didn't want to find love. In fact, she dreamed of it, deep, meaningful love. But for her, the timing had never felt right, and every time she thought she'd found someone, something always went wrong. It didn't help that her family seemed obsessed with her relationship status. Every family event was an interrogation, filled with probing questions and unsolicited advice. "When will you bring home a husband, Amaka?" her mother, Mama Amaka, would ask, her brow furrowed with concern. "Look at your younger sisters, they're already married. You don't want to be left behind, do you?" It was a conversation that had been on repeat for years. At every wedding, birthday, and Christmas gathering, her single status was the main topic of discussion. Her younger sisters, Chika and Neka, were both married with children, and her older cousins had long since settled down. Amaka was the only one left, and the pressure was starting to mount. One fateful Tuesday morning, Amaka's phone buzzed as she was getting ready for work. The message, from her cousin Ifeoma, read, "Big sis, I'm getting married. I want you to come and bring your boyfriend. Everyone is expecting you." Face blowing a kiss. Amaka groaned audibly as she read the message. Ifeoma's wedding would be a grand affair, and Amaka knew her family wouldn't let her breathe for even a moment if she attended alone. It was one thing to face the awkward questions at family barbecues, but a wedding? That was another level of scrutiny. Ifeoma, with her fairy tale engagement to a successful banker, would undoubtedly be the center of attention, but Amaka had no illusions. Her aunties and uncles would be focused on her lack of a husband. Amaka sighed and slumped into her couch, staring at the invitation that was attached to the message. She could already imagine the whispers from the older women at the reception. They would nod knowingly and speculate why someone as beautiful and accomplished as Amaka couldn't find a man. She knew she had to find a solution, and fast. Later that day, over lunch, Amaka shared her frustrations with her best friend, Busy. The two women had known each other since secondary school, and Busy had always been Amaka's confidant. "You should just show up with a boyfriend," Busy said matter-of-factly, dipping a piece of yam into the spicy fish stew in front of her. Amaka scoffed. "And where exactly do you suggest I find one in 2 months? Boyfriends don't grow on trees." Busy grinned mischievously. "Who said he has to be real?" Amaka raised an eyebrow. "What are you talking about? Get a fake boyfriend," Busy said, her eyes lighting up with excitement. "You can hire someone, or better yet, find a friend who's willing to pretend. All you need is someone to show up, smile, hold your hand, and make sure your aunties think you're off the market." Amaka stared at Busy, a mixture of amusement and horror creeping up her face. "A fake boyfriend? Are you serious?" Busy leaned back in her chair, folding her arms across her chest. "I'm dead serious. Think about it. You show up to the wedding with a guy, everyone leaves you alone, and then you can go back to living your life. No awkward questions, no pitying looks. It's perfect." Amaka rolled her eyes. "And where am I supposed to find someone willing to do this?" Busy tapped her chin thoughtfully. What about Connor?" Amaka blinked in surprise. Connor was their colleague in the office, the IT guy who was always fixing everyone's computer problems. He was laid back, witty, and dependable, a great guy to be around, but not someone Amaka had ever considered as boyfriend material, real or fake. "You want me to ask Connor to pretend to be my boyfriend?" Amaka asked incredulously. "Why not?" Busy replied with a shrug. "He's funny, easygoing, and trustworthy. Plus, he's single, and you guys get along well. It's just for a weekend, and he'd totally understand. You could even bribe him with a few lunches." Amaka chuckled at the absurdity of the situation. "This is crazy." "Crazy or not, it's the best option you have," Busy pointed out. "What's the worst that could happen?" After much thought and some prodding from Busy, Amaka finally decided to approach Connor with her plan. Later that afternoon, she found herself standing in front of his desk in the IT department, her heart racing a little faster than she expected. "Hey Connor, do you have a minute?" she asked, trying to sound casual. Connor, who was in the middle of fixing someone's computer, looked up and smiled. Sure, what's up? Amaka glanced around nervously, then lowered her voice. I need a favor. A really weird favor. Connor's interest piqued. He pushed his chair back and gave her his full attention. Weird favors are my specialty. What do you need? Amaka took a deep breath. I need you to pretend to be my boyfriend for a weekend. Connor blinked, clearly caught off guard. Wait, what? Amaka quickly launched into an explanation, telling him about her cousin's wedding, the family pressure, and the need to avoid endless questions. She could see Connor processing the information, his eyebrows raised in amusement. So, let me get this straight, Connor said, leaning forward. You want me to be your fake boyfriend for a weekend, just to get your family off your back? Amaka nodded sheepishly. Yes, exactly. Connor leaned back in his chair, a grin spreading across his face. And what do I get out of this? Amaka smiled, relieved that he hadn't outright rejected her. I'll buy you lunch for a week. And I'll owe you a big favor. Whatever you need. Connor chuckled and crossed his arms. Alright, deal. But I get to pick the lunches. Amaka let out a breath she hadn't realized she was holding. Deal. The weeks leading up to the wedding flew by, and soon enough, the day of reckoning arrived. Amaka and Connor met early on Saturday morning, ready to make the 2-hour drive to her hometown for the wedding. Amaka couldn't believe how calm Connor seemed about the whole thing. Meanwhile, her nerves were on edge. As they drove through the lush countryside, Amaka and Connor rehearsed their fake relationship story. They practiced answering questions about how they met, their favorite memories, and even made up a few inside jokes to make their relationship seem more believable. By the time they reached the wedding venue, Amaka was feeling slightly more confident, but the pit in her stomach hadn't completely gone away. The wedding was being held at a grand event center in the town, and as soon as they parked, Amaka could feel the eyes of her family and friends on her. Connor took her hand and squeezed it gently. Relax, I've got this. Amaka nodded, grateful for his calm demeanor. They walked into the reception hand in hand, and immediately, they were surrounded by her relatives. Her mother, who had been eagerly waiting for her arrival, rushed over, her eyes shining with approval. Amaka. My daughter. Mama, Amaka exclaimed, pulling her into a tight hug before turning her attention to Connor. And who is this fine young man? Connor smiled warmly and introduced himself. I'm Connor, Amaka's boyfriend. Amaka's mother's eyes widened, and a smile spread across her face. Oh, I see. Welcome, Connor, welcome. You are most welcome. We've been waiting for this day, you know, Connor chuckled. It's a pleasure to meet you, Ma. For the next hour, Connor expertly navigated the family introductions, answering questions with charm and grace. He made small talk with Amaka's uncles, helped her aunts carry plates of food, and even entertained her little cousins with stories about his job in Lagos. He was a natural, and soon enough, everyone seemed to forget that he was a stranger. As the evening went on, Amaka found herself relaxing more and more. Connor's easygoing nature made everything seem effortless, and the more time they spent together, the more she realized how much she enjoyed his company. They danced together, laughed together, and shared knowing glances whenever one of her relatives said something awkward. It was as if they had known each other for years, and for the first time in a long while, Amaka felt at ease at a family gathering. But as the night progressed, something else began to stir in Amaka's heart. What had started as a fake relationship for the sake of convenience was beginning to feel real. The way Connor looked at her when she laughed, the warmth of his hand on hers, the way he leaned in close when they shared a joke, it all felt genuine. During the couple's dance, when the lights were dimmed and the music was soft, Connor pulled Amaka onto the dance floor. They swayed gently to the rhythm of the song, and for the first time that evening, Amaka found herself nervous again, but this time, it wasn't because of her family. Are you having fun? Connor asked, his voice low and close to her ear. Amaka nodded. Surprisingly, yes. What if it didn't have to be fake? Amaka froze, her heart skipping a beat. She stared up at him, searching his face for any sign that he was joking. But Connor's expression was serious, and his eyes held a vulnerability she hadn't seen before. I mean it, Amaka, he said softly. I didn't expect this, but I like you. And I think you like me too. Amaka felt her breath catch in her throat. She hadn't been prepared for this. She had never imagined that this fake relationship could turn into something real. But as she stood there, in Connor's arms, surrounded by the warmth of the music and the glow of the wedding lights, she realized that maybe, just maybe, she felt the same way. I didn't expect this either, Amaka admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. But maybe you're right. Connor smiled, his hand tightening around hers. So what do you say? No more pretending. Amaka looked up at him, her heart full of emotion. No more pretending. As the night wore on, Amaka and Connor danced and laughed, their connection deepening with every passing moment. What had started as a simple plan to avoid awkward questions had blossomed into something unexpected and beautiful. By the time they returned to Lagos the next day, they were no longer pretending. Their fake relationship had become real, and for the first time in a long time, Amaka felt like she had found something she hadn't even been looking for. And so, in the heart of Lagos, in a city full of endless possibilities, Amaka and Connor began their journey together, proof that sometimes, love finds you in the most unexpected places, even when you're just pretending. Please like, subscribe and comment.